and cut in taxes, I knew definitely election coming. I'm feeling something, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I first acknowledge this budget as being the final budget presentation by the outgoing Premier, Honorable Joseph Farrell, better known as Honorable Easton Taylor. Indeed, it is also MCAP's final budget, this being an election year and the last budget presentation by this MCAP government. Madam Speaker, it appears as if the Premier got emotional at the end of his presentation. Some people even interpreted the sound or silence or combination thereof they heard as sobbing. Some even asked if he was crying. And he said, yes, he was crying. Madam Speaker, I cannot tell you the reason why he was crying. I can only assume, Madam Speaker, maybe he had mixed feelings about the budget he presented. Maybe he was entertaining thoughts that in this election year, his final budget fell short of public expectations. That is just my interpretation. Madam Speaker, he may have his own reasons. Madam Speaker, the budget theme, the vision to reality, transforming our economy, protecting our environment, and empowering our communities. Indeed, Madam Speaker, the intention of the theme is good. But, Madam Speaker, to transform our economy will require a lot more than the content of this budget. Yes, some things will be achieved, but there is still a far way to go. Our census, Madam Speaker, confirms a decline in population. My question, where in this budget estimate is there a funded strategy to retain and grow the population? Madam Speaker, if it's there, I did not get it. Madam Speaker, it's important that we do not downplay the size of the population or the trend in the decline of the population, Madam Speaker. For the private sector to become vibrant, we need to first retain who we have presently, then quickly find a way to grow the population. Many small businesses struggle because of lack of sufficient turnover, not enough people to pay for their services, often enough. Madam Speaker, even MUL and other utilities companies are at a disadvantage because the customer base is too small. Simple solution, we need more people, more working people. Madam Speaker, simply put, the economy will not be transformed unless we grow the population sooner than later. People are working one job, but the hardship is felt as the small salaries are further eroded by high cost of living and high inflation that keep rising by the minute. Inflation, Madam Speaker, is forever rising. Cost of living is forever rising. Even with an increase and tax cut, some are looking for a second income to supplement their present income. To achieve this, we must attract various forms of business ventures with night time and weekend hours to create these additional job opportunities. Madam Speaker, I did not hear it in the budget speech, and I did not see it in the budget estimates. I did not see or hear the strategy that will create these jobs, additional jobs that I am referring to. So, Madam Speaker, that's an area of scrutiny, Madam Speaker, that I would like to highlight, because it is important that if we intend to truly transform the economy, we're going to have to do it through the private sector. Private sector initiatives facilitated by the government. We must create the jobs. When we create quality jobs, people will come. What are transformational jobs, or what are the transformational job opportunities on offer in this budget, Madam Speaker? What are they? And that is what I mean, Madam Speaker. We must be able, within or between the budget presentation and the budget estimates, to show numbers and figures of our planned, approved, funded strategies that we will use to get the jobs, get the population going, Madam Speaker. We cannot continue to exist with 4,300 people and be viable. Madam Speaker, it would mean that we will have to pick up the additional fees and taxes, and we cannot afford to do so. It is time to believe in our young people, not just giving lip service, but by our actions and decision-making. Why do people come out of retirement to do the job a young or younger person should be given the opportunity to do? It is time to stop this. When the practice of bringing people out of retirement and taking away the work that young people should be doing is stopped, then young people will feel appreciated. Madam Speaker, if we want to transform our economy, we must use our young people as part of the process. We must include them, because there's a saying that we like to use: the young people are the future. Madam Speaker, the system must expose the young people, expose them from early, give them the opportunity to get the experience, guide them and mold them. But Madam Speaker, even in politics, we 80 and 70-something years and bringing back our dead selves from retirement to do what? Madam Speaker, it's practiced in this public service and it's now being practiced in politics. Madam Speaker, we must stop it. Reject them. They're saying to you that you young people not good enough to do nothing. So even though they're old and 100 years, they might come back and do it for you. Nothing tall, go so. Nothing tall, go so. Madam Speaker, give the young people opportunity. You were young one time and you get your opportunity. Give somebody else the opportunity now. Stop taking away the opportunity from the young people. Stop denying them upward mobility. You kill the country. That's why the people in left and go. And you talk about everyone can represent. Represent who? Not me. Giving them every opportunity to advance. Give the young people opportunity to advance. Is how you empower the youth. That is how, Madam Speaker, you empower the community. You gotta give our young people the opportunity to develop and grow. Otherwise, we'll be left here. We all old people walking on our walking sticks and no young people around us. So if we don't want that, we gotta fix it now. Fix it now, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, changing of British police commissioners every month is not transformational. At the rate it's going, we will soon have a British police commissioner for every day of the year. The rate is going. Madam Speaker, we cannot continue like this. It sends the wrong message. Since they sent home our local commissioner, no British commissioner has been able to last long in the job. Some for various reasons, and some just not interested to work with whoever. Whether they're not interested to work with the governor or they're interested to work in Montserrat, they're just not interested and they don't have no interest in Montserrat. And the only people that have interest in Montserrat is the ones that live in Montserrat and the ones that have ties to Montserrat that happen to live overseas. No British commissioner have no interest in Montserrat. So I call on the governor to stop it. It's time you put back our local commissioner, a local commissioner, find one. Put in place a proper succession planning. Then you impress me. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed, Your Excellency. Get your act together. Don't let me get it together for you. When you fail to prepare effective succession planning, you plan to fail. Indeed, the civil service has failed and is falling apart under you, Your Excellency, the Governor. Fix it. It is the popular public perception that the governor is running the country. Well, if that is so, how come the governor can't fix the civil service issues? The governor is in charge of the civil service. How come? Somebody please tell me. There is nothing transformational about all the chaos and disorder in the civil service. Nothing. So much things to fix, but instead of fixing, they are getting worse. And you're jumping around like a frog in everybody else's business. Stop them. Fix the things that are under you. Remember, the public service need to get its house in order before it can facilitate the private sector. It is important to fix the issues in the public service urgently. Otherwise, neither the public service nor the private sector nor Montserrat is going nowhere. Transforming our economy. To transform this economy will take a lot more than the projects and few programs in this budget. Madam Speaker, mark you, there are some things in the budget that will contribute to that. However, I must make the point that we have so much more things that we're going to need to do over time. And I don't want anyone to feel comfortable that they have done any great favor to anybody with this budget. Madam Speaker, I thank those who work on the budget, and I thank the government for putting and presenting something here. But Madam Speaker, I put it to you, it is not sufficient. And it's not one that I would glorify. Madam Speaker, however, the key question here is what aspects of this budget will transform the economy and to what extent? We need to understand that, so we need to know where we are, where we're going, and what we need to do to get where we're going. In this election year, Madam Speaker, we expect that the government will try things to convince the people to try and get re-elected back into power. So, Madam Speaker, they tried something. They tried several things. And some people interpret it and interpret some of them as election gimmicks. Some people, Madam Speaker, would say, okay, at least they try something. Madam Speaker, you're going to have different views. We expect, Madam Speaker, that they will try different things in the final year. It's their last opportunity to try something. But, Madam Speaker, it's up to the people to be fooled or not to be fooled. It's up to the people to be convinced or not be convinced. Madam Speaker, the people will make their own judgment call on the budget. When I hear the members of the government celebrating and glorifying this budget, saying it will transform the economy, I wonder, why are they so out of touch with reality? Clearly, the MCAP government is out of touch with the needs of the people of this island if they truly believe this budget will transform the economy. The government is out of touch with the hardship and difficulties the people and businesses in the private sector are experiencing. Sometimes, maybe, they are forgotten and overlooked. But remember, we like to say is the private sector is the engine of growth. So we can't afford to forget them, whether in our budget or any other activity that we are doing. If the government has stayed in touch with the people over the last 5 years, they would have known what the needs of the people are. And that goes for all governments, Madam Speaker. Even with an increase in 25% to recurrent budget last year, the economy remained dead, with small businesses struggling to meet their financial commitments. People struggle to meet financial commitments as well. So you have the individuals and you have the businesses struggling. Working people, I'm referring to, working people are still facing hardship. Some have 2 jobs, Madam Speaker, just to try to make ends meet, and those are few in between, because there are others who would like to get a second job to supplement, but it's not available, at least not in the night time after they finish work or on the weekend. Madam Speaker, cost of living, the inflation has eroded the disposable income of the working population. The government announced an additional 2.23 million for new spend priorities. What are these priorities? May I ask, Madam Speaker? Because I know there are a lot of competing priorities. And whatever they may be, I believed that the 2.23 million is a drop in the bucket when you consider the urgent needs of this country and its people and how much it costs to address them. Madam Speaker, we should soon be taking part in consultation about the relationship with the overseas territory and the British. And I believe, Madam Speaker, it is such a shame that when we go into that consultation, that all I would see is a set of persons who wants to improve the relationship, but only think fit that we only deserve 2.23 million new spend, when our new spend requirement is substantially higher. Madam Speaker, there is always different type of relationships. You have the good one, the bad ones, the broken ones. We need to determine which one we're in, and we need to determine which one we want to be in. Madam Speaker, if MCAP believe that this $2.23 million is a great achievement, then I would have to say they too are out of touch with the people and the reality of the needs of the people. I do hope that they do not think that is a great achievement, because I know that the priorities, competing priorities, are great. And we know that the amount of money needed to address them is a lot much more than 2.23 million. Because, Madam Speaker, this cannot bring any transformation. This cannot empower any community. And, Madam Speaker, it gets even worse, Madam Speaker. If the government should go through with the rumor of cutting 9 million from the skeleton budget of the ministries to help pay for a $17 million jackpot one-year ferry service. If they go through with that, I hope it's just a rumor, because if it's a reality and they go through with that, then, Madam Speaker, we will know that even less funds will be available to carry out the services that we need here in Montserrat. Madam Speaker, this 2024-25 election year, MCAP presents its final budget of $236.3 million. It consists of $155.7 million recurrent and $80.6 million of capital projects. Madam Speaker, let's take a look at the $155 million recurrent budget. There's some important items, Madam Speaker, that must be paid for, and they are necessary. And of course, Madam Speaker, we will all agree that they must be paid for. But we have to put things into context. And it means, Madam Speaker, that once you add up these standard or recurrent things that must be paid for, you only have a certain amount of the budget left to create jobs for the people. And Madam Speaker, some of these standard items I refer to are salaries to the tune of $46,100,400. Madam Speaker, pensions and gratuities to the tune of $15,386,700. Another $26,277,800 is professional service and fees. $26,277,800. Madam Speaker, we have another $15,627,800 for subvention. Madam Speaker, I can go on and on, but 12 out of the 13 of the 37 lines, Madam Speaker, add up to $128,476,200. It means, Madam Speaker, that of the $155,000, most would have to go to paying these standard items. So, Madam Speaker, of the remaining 25 items, let's look at what is left. $26,523,800. But, Madam Speaker, out of this, the maintenance is where many people in construction, many people who have run the services, hardware stores, many people who run trucks as part of the business, trucking material and so forth, trucking sand. This is where they look mainly within the recurrent budget to see what opportunities are there for them. Madam Speaker, of the $155 million, only $7,968,100 is assigned and budgeted to this area of maintenance. So you see, even though the recurrent budget sounds like a big figure, $155 million, and as I stated before, every item in this budget is important. But when you put things into perspective and you look at what will create some jobs for people in the construction industry, people in the trucking, people in the hardware, you realize we are looking at just approximately $8 million, Madam Speaker. $8 million out of the $155 million. So it's important to put things in perspective. And as I said again, this can be reduced even significantly to a lower figure if the rumor I'm hearing about cutting $9 million from the ministries, if it becomes a vision to reality. If that rumor becomes from a vision to reality and they cut $9 million from the various ministries, that's $8 million for maintenance might be cut significantly. So, Madam Speaker, I pray and hope that the $9 million cut is a rumor and it remain a rumor and a vision that do not come a reality. Madam Speaker, the maintenance budget, Madam Speaker, if it gets cut, it will have significant negative impacts because the businesses who are into selling material, the truckers who are into moving goods, and Madam Speaker, the construction workers who need to put food on the table would be disappointed. Madam Speaker, I want to touch on training. Because for years, and this is not just about or under this government, for years, Madam Speaker, under several governments, the training budget did not seem to move much. It's roughly $2,991,400, but yet, every government, Madam Speaker, it seems to stay just about the same thing. But we have all been preaching about We need to train our people, build capacity. But, Madam Speaker, I don't know, for some reason, this budget just seems to stay the same place. And if we're going to build capacity, we will need to improve and increase the amount of money we put in the training. Madam Speaker, money for training has always been inadequate. And this budget is no different. We must seek to increase the training budget. If more money is put into the training, more scholarships can be given to more persons, including young people who would be bonded and will be retained in Montserrat. Madam Speaker, I received a scholarship. On return, I was bonded, and eventually I stayed here. Madam Speaker, many others received scholarship. Probably had ideas to go somewhere, but they were bonded, they came home, and once they start working, and they start building homes, and they start getting involved in relationships and whatever, Madam Speaker, they just stay here. But Madam Speaker, if I have to take my own money, if somebody have to take their own money and go out there and train themselves, it's highly unlikely that they will just come back here. But when they get this scholarship, they are bonded. So that is like a commitment they have here back to this island. Madam Speaker, we have to increase the training budget. We have to. And Madam Speaker, remember, it's not only young people who are looking for training, there are people in this service, existing people, who are also looking for further training. So it could only happen if we find a way to increase the training budget. So instead of cutting the different ministries by $9 million to put on the ferry for a $70 million budget, I believe put some of the money on the training, in the training budget. Madam Speaker, there's one area that all of us speak about the problem, but like we have not collectively decided to work on the solution. Yes, we need the academics, and we must support them. But Madam Speaker, as you look around the country, Madam Speaker, and you look at the tradesmen, and you look at the age profile, you realize that most of the tradesmen are in the late 40s or over 50. Madam Speaker, they will not be able to climb to heights. They will not be able to continue to work in the sun when they're 70 and 65 and so forth. So the time has come, Madam Speaker, for us to correct the error made some time ago when we changed from our technical college to just a community college. So, Madam Speaker, we failed to plan and plan to fail because now we do not have the technical college in place to train the skilled workers. So, Madam Speaker, you find that very soon, even if you have projects, you may not have no skilled workers locally to actually execute these projects. So if you're talking about transforming the economy and building Montserrat, you have to have people to do the building. And just like you need the professionals and the academics, you need the skilled workers, Madam Speaker. So I want to push for a portion of the increased funding in the training budget, Madam Speaker. I want to push for a portion of that to go to skill training, to train these people so that we can have skilled tradespeople, our builders, Madam Speaker. We need them. Otherwise, we will hear politicians talking about we're going to build this and build that, and there's nobody to build it. So, Madam Speaker, I said I did not hear anything in the budget that speak to a technical college or any technical training. And, Madam Speaker, I believe that the Honourable Dorset will agree with me on this one because she has always been speaking about this technical training and skills training. Madam Speaker, so I'm disappointed that I did not see that. So there is one more point, Madam Speaker, that convinced me that when it comes to what our needs in terms of our skill training, and I believe I would be in my rightful place to say that the government in this budget is out of touch with the needs of our construction industry. And not only construction industry, because we need the mechanics and we need all the other skilled persons, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, is one area I'm suggesting to them for improvement. But, Madam Speaker, I might have to do it myself because this is their last budget, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, probably I'm giving myself my own advice. Madam Speaker, I must say that I listen attentively to hear what exactly would be there for the Mali activities. Madam Speaker, because, you know, under the program 301, Agriculture Services, I only see 304,600 assigned to Mali activities. And Madam Speaker, this is despite listening to the budget speech, and the Premier agreed in his speech that agriculture sector is the heart, let me repeat, the heart of our sustainable development. So I was expecting, Madam Speaker, to see a greater contribution of funding assigned to the Mali activities. Madam Speaker, I wonder how much can be achieved with the $304,600 in the recurrent budget Mali activities. Madam Speaker, I really wonder if we truly believe that agriculture sector is the heart of our sustainable development, we'll have to put our money where our mouth is, Madam Speaker. Otherwise, it's not going to work, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when the minister said his ministry gave assistance to farmers, he did not give any guarantee that the savings will be passed on to the consumers to make the food more affordable. Madam Speaker, maybe he cannot give any guarantee. Maybe he cannot give any guarantee. But Madam Speaker, this is an area again that I'm suggesting that we need to work on, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they said they want some suggestions. So I'm here to provide suggestions. Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if they need me to help them, I'm willing to help them. Yes, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the Premier mentioned something good. He mentioned something good. The Premier mentioned 1.5 million for an agriculture products expansion project, right? But you see, the thing about it, Madam Speaker, the Premier mentioned it and it was vague. And here came the great minister, Madam Speaker, and he did not expound on it. So I guess he just wanted to leave us in suspension. So, Madam Speaker, I did not get the details from neither the Premier or the Minister of Culture. So I'm asking them the next opportunity they get to explain the 1.5 million agriculture product expansion project. So that, Madam Speaker, might explain. Madam Speaker. Yeah, he went for 2 hours and still not explain that. He went for 2 hours, I tell you, election coming. The man even forgot some of his stuff and he went and delivered some of Dr. Sammy's stuff. But that's the kind of nervousness you get when you're in power for 5 years and election will come. You know how that feel? Yeah, I was there, so I know what I'm saying. So you're all nervous as a rat out there. Nervous as a rat. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me leave these nervous people alone. Eh? Madam Speaker, 705,500 revenue refund. That's a great thing to see, Madam Speaker. It's a great thing to see in that my only concern here, Madam Speaker, is that I want to know if this is sufficient. And the reason why I say this is that I recall, I don't want to say it's last year, it could have been last year or the year before. I recall that although there was some fund budgeted for people to get the tax refund, and at one point, Madam Speaker, when the department ran out of funds and some people could not get the funding. So I do hope that this time around that the 705,500 is sufficient to actually pay all the people that are due a tax refund. I really do hope that that is so. Because it's a good thing to have money budgeted so people can get their tax refund. That is great, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at this juncture, I wish to highlight the outstanding work done by the Montserrat workforce. Because, Madam Speaker, we come here and we compliment and we also critique. But, Madam Speaker, I want to also highlight the great work that has been done by the Montserrat workforce, both the public sector and the private sector. Madam Speaker, I will start with a department that works closely with the PAC, of which I'm the chair. Madam Speaker, as you know, Honourable Cord Hogan and Honourable Hector and myself are part of the PAC. And just to explain, the PAC is not a personal thing, it's not a political thing, it's a creature of the Parliament. So we work on behalf of the whole Parliament. And Madam Speaker, I want to just start with the audit department, who work closely, they prepare the audits and then they guide us in terms of technical assistance so that we get it right. Madam Speaker, yes, the PAC works closely. For the last 5 years, we've been working closely with the audit department, and I want to thank myself and the other members of the PAC, Madam Speaker. We want to thank the Auditor General acting and her staff for the assistance they've given to us over the last 5 years, 3 years. Madam Speaker, I believe they have done a great job, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, I myself was really surprised at the amount of audit reports that turn out every year. Madam Speaker, on the order paper right now, it would show 9 high-quality audit reports that will be tabled in this session. So I must give credit, Madam Speaker, to the Auditor General acting and the staff of the Audit Office. Madam Speaker, I've been to regional meetings where when I reported on the output of the Auditor General Office, and when the other people who go to the Caribbean report, all they could stand up and say, they can't believe that Montserrat is doing so much work. So I could tell you that Montserrat is leading when it comes to the amount of audit reports that are being put out by any audit department in the Caribbean. They're leading. And, you know, some of us sometimes we don't like it because we say, you know, they come and you feel it's a little bit, you know, it bothers you a bit because they have to ask all these questions or whatever. But at the end of the day, we preach transparency, good governance, and accountability. And that is what they do. They're doing the work. And Madam Speaker, some people tell me in the Caribbean that they said the last time they see a report might be 3 years ago, right? And we are getting 9 and so in 1 year. And some people can't even get 1 in 3 years. So Madam Speaker, they deserve the credit. And of course, no wonder that they invite the Auditor General acting to regional and international sessions, Madam Speaker, to present. And Madam Speaker, I believe, however, as I said before about the public service, we come and we give lip service when people do a good job. But when it's time, Madam Speaker, they're in the position acting for 3 and 4 and 5 years, donkey years, and then we don't want to appoint them. Madam Speaker, that is something we need to correct. Madam Speaker, I must also highlight the work of opposition members and the reliable staff in the opposition office. By extension, I must also highlight the work of all civil servants and all workers in the private sector, construction, and all other sectors. Madam Speaker, it's important that I do that because, Madam Speaker, I also want to highlight the work of the members on the government side, because although I criticize them, Madam Speaker, I know it's not easy. So they do what they think they can do, and it's our job on the opposition side to commend when it's time to commend, and to critique when it's time to critique. And if we believe that we could do a better job, then we say so. And we do believe we can do a better job, that's why we say so. So, Madam Speaker, I want to, however, I don't want to leave out the legislature department. And I don't want to leave out this entire Parliament, Madam Speaker. I want to thank all of you for your assistance to the country. I know indeed all of us are benefiting from it. Madam Speaker, I want to touch on sand mining and quarrying because it's an important part of the island. Because remember, we don't have much things, you know, to really export. Some people say we export people. So they say sand mining is our greatest export, and then say people afterwards. So, Madam Speaker, we need to give credit to the sand mining. And all these guys who work in sand mining, all these guys who have a business in sand mining, we need to give them credit. I mean, no business in Montserrat you're running going to be easy. Everything comes with a challenge. So while the government in the budget speech states mining and quarrying sector is crucial for Montserrat in terms of potential growth, I do agree with the government on that. But what is puzzling is that after 5 years in power, dealing with a matter of permission to mine in Plymouth, the government to date have failed to resolve the issue. However, Madam Speaker, what I don't understand is why there have been some complaints by a couple of some mining companies saying that they've been refused approval of duty-free concessions when they applied. Madam Speaker, perhaps the Premier could explain the basis of that, because I thought that they were there to assist the sand miners. But Madam Speaker, I told you earlier that when you see certain things and you hear certain things, you know election coming. Madam Speaker, in this election year, after 5 years of not solving it, I heard the minister said he announced in his presentation that he has his technicians doing some surveys over there recently. Well, I'm talking about from what he said. What he said. There is risk, everything like, if risk coming here, stand up here and speak is a risk. So we have to calculate the risk. So there is risk in everything. There's risk in everything, so we have to calculate the risk. So it's up for the minister to say, give his explanation. And you too, Premier, because you'll get to speak after me. So you'll tell me what the risks are, and you'll tell me the calculated risk, and you can tell me if it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. So I have no problem with that. It's a debate. I get to say my piece, you get to say your piece. On the sand mining, when the Premier said it is the government aim to balance the economic benefits by reviewing government revenue structures and concessions to the miners. You know, that's a mouthful, and I don't want to be the one to interpret what I mean, so I prefer to ask. So will the review be done to raise the amounts government receives from sand miners? And if so, how? Is it by increasing the rate of the taxes or the fees on the sand miners? Is it by making more areas available to mine, so you mine more and export more? That was not made clear. So the Premier, I would appreciate if the Premier could clearly articulate his government's position where that is concerned. I mean, as I said, the statement was vague, and I don't want to be the one to try to interpret it, lest I interpret it incorrectly. So the Premier went on to say that the sand mining is a key export and driver of the economy. Remember that word, driver of the economy. But he went on to state further that we need to feel the benefits of this activity. I know that the sand miners are contributing a lot, the activity, to the local economy, so I'm not sure what the Premier means by that. Is the Premier saying that the government is not feeling the benefits enough of sand mining? He gets to speak after me so he can explain himself. Access and connectivity. This is always an area of vexation, Madam Speaker. Always an area of vexation. Access and connectivity. Madam Speaker, in the budget presentation, the Premier did make reference to the 5 months when the government secured a ferry service, a very fancy ferry, Madam Speaker. I haven't been on it yet, but it's a very fancy ferry, for a cost of $8 million over 5 years, for 5 months. I wish it was 5 years, but over 5 months. So a 5 months ferry service for $8 million. He did mention that, Madam Speaker. But I was waiting to hear some clarification, Madam Speaker, about the 1-year ferry service extension for $17 million, as announced by the Premier on ZGB Radio. But the Premier did not go into that. Maybe he will go into that at a later date. But I was waiting, like many other people, to hear if there is still this 1-year extension for 70 million, or it's a 1-year extension for less, or there is no 1-year extension? What I think? Well, what I would tell you, I would not be paying no ferry, no 1-year extension for no $17 million. Right. So if you're thinking like me, that is good. So if the ferryman thought he was getting a drop back of 17 million, let change your mind. Because I would not agree to cut no $9 million across no ministries to give no ferry no $17 million when you have people in Montserrat feeling hardship and you could give them a break with it. Not me and that. Not me and that. Not me and that. So if you tried it and you rethink it, maybe you rethink it because I made a radio statement, so I take some credit. Maybe you rethink it because election here and election coming. Election coming. So, Madam Speaker, what I noticed, however, probably the Premier could take note and explain this. With the budget estimates for access is showing $5,451,700. So, Madam Speaker, I know the ferry service for the 5 years was, for the 5 months were costing $8 million. I'm a little bit confused here with the $5,451,700 because I know out of this you would have to have some subsidies for the plane and other things. So, okay, let me repeat that for the Premier because he was distracted. Okay, with the budget estimates for access showing $5,451,700, I was saying the numbers are not adding up. By that what I mean, I know normally the access budget consists of monies with access, with subsidies for the plane, and monies for the ferry, etc. So I'm saying if it's only $5,451,700, I'm a little bit concerned as to what portion of this will be used to get a ferry, whether it's for 5 months or whatever it's for, and what portion for the, right off the bat, maybe $451,700 might go to the access to the subsidies to the plane. I don't know, but then I am thinking that you're probably not going to get a ferry for $5 million for a year. So that's what I'm saying. I'm a little bit puzzled as to why the figure is so low for the access. Why it's only $5 million roughly, $5.5 million roughly. So I believe that it is important to clear this up because I'm sure many of us are wondering, well, if this is the budget for the access, how is it then that we're going to be able to contract the service of a ferry and still deal with the subsidies for the plane? So I would need some clarity on that one. Madam Speaker, it seems like a lot of things when it seems to stop or get introduced that not necessarily working out for the government or the public during this last 5 years. Whether, Madam Speaker, it's the doing of the government or they're just bad lucky, it so happened that these things happen and they happen under the government. So anything happens during your tenure, you have to take responsibility for it. That's how government works, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the enforcement or enforced visa issue continue to restrict the capacity and feasibility of the Twin Otter operations into Montserrat. Madam Speaker, I went on record as the first to shine the spotlight on the agenda to highlight ASI and others with their intention to sabotage and restrict the access into Montserrat. Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, furthermore, over a year ago, a consultancy was initiated by the Office of the Governor, or the Governor Office, Madam Speaker, and it's still not shared with the public. And when that consultancy went out, it said clearly it will be shared with the public. It is not shared with the public. So I don't know if it's shared with the government of Montserrat. I don't know if it's shared with them. They would have to say if it's shared with them if they feel they want to speak about it. But I'm saying I'm concerned that we have such a critical issue with the RISA. Then you have a powerful office carrying out or initiating a consultancy, promise that they will share the information and have not shared the information with us. And here we are in Parliament debating a budget, and as the opposition leader, I have not seen this consultancy report. I don't know if the Premier know it, but I did ask the governor for it at one meeting I had with her, and she said it was not completed. So I don't understand how it's not completed and over a year gone. But I believe it's completed, but I believe the information in it is not what they want to hear. I believe the information is in our favor, so they don't want to release it, because they're probably ashamed that they embarrass themselves. Madam Speaker, the report from the Access Committee is still outstanding. I don't know when we're going to get that. And I believe, Madam Speaker, that if we don't get that quickly, we may have to take other actions, Madam Speaker, to resolve this issue, because we can't let the access just linger and linger and linger. There's need for solution. And then again, Madam Speaker, this year is an election year. So I believe that the government will want to come up with a solution before election. So, Madam Speaker, with this existing shambolic state of access, a shambolic state of access that we're in, Madam Speaker, that is not only our cause, but this shambolic state of access has been brought upon us partly by ASI and the British government. Yeah, me said it, and it's the truth. It's the truth. It's the gospel truth. It is the gospel truth, my gospel. Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I believe that together, the British must work with us to solve it. You come in to have discussion with us on Monday about relationship. What we want fixed as part of the relationship issues is the access issues. We want that fixed. We need that fixed. Madam Speaker, how can we, according to the theme of the budget, transform our economy? How can we transform an economy, Madam Speaker, when we don't even know if you're going to have a ferry service for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, or a year? When we don't even know if the visa is going to be removed in any short or immediate time frame. Madam Speaker, you see, this is how they retard the progress of our country. This is how they retard the progress of the OTs. This is how, Madam Speaker, and the reason why people speak of modern-day slavery. Madam Speaker, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. If you want to be in a relationship with me, we have to be mutual. It has to be mutual, Madam Speaker. You can't be dictating to me. You can't be dictating to me. You either be mutual or you go your way, and I go my way. So, Madam Speaker, I don't know, but this access issue, it needs to be resolved, and resolved very quickly. So I do hope that the Access Committee gets the report in here sooner, and that I do hope that we can take necessary actions. Madam Speaker, housing. Not much has been done by government over the last 5 years to increase the housing stock. The housing stock. Madam Speaker, the Premier says you said 10 years. And to some extent, Madam Speaker, it may be for 10 years. But I could tell you for one thing, there was more homes built under PDM than under this MCAP administration. Even though they say we didn't build much. Madam Speaker, in 5 years, no house was built by the government, by this MCAP government, and they know it's the truth. And if they don't accept it's the truth, I will consider that they're delusional. I would say they're delusional. So they have to agree with me on this one. But Madam Speaker, in this election year, I tell you already, election coming. The government is making an election promise. Because the minister said he's going to build 2 houses. And he said he get 1.5 million, and he's going to do some roads, put in some utilities, and build 2 housing units. Madam Speaker, I want to be there when they cut the ribbon. I want to see it for myself. You have the money? The Premier say he give the minister. The Premier say the money in the budget, he say? So here what happen now? I might turn no, I'm on the floor. Here, listen. The Premier said just now to me, he give the minister the money. So if the house don't get built, it's the minister's fault. And he not perform. So you better build your house them. You better build them before election. Madam Speaker, but if you don't build them, don't worry, my friend. If you don't build them, I'll finish them for you. I'll finish them. So, Madam Speaker, I don't know if I have the agreement with the of the government, but I hope I do. Because, Madam Speaker, we have a very good program of the housing grants to help the people who need. But you know what happened? It's over. Maybe you all never really stopped to calculate it, but it's over 24 years that we have the grant at $40,000. And I remember in our term when they had the consultancy and the consultant came around and you all continued the same consultancy. I remember mentioning to him that $40,000, the value of the $40,000 back then was much greater than the value of $40,000 now. So whatever the intention was then, I mean, it's not been achieved now because we have the same $40,000 grant 24 years later. So I'm sure that the people who do the calculation of the inflation rate will be able to come up with what the figure should be now. So instead of I just coming here and say 60,000 or 80,000, I leave it to the people who would work out the inflation that took place 24 years ago to now. And I assure you all will come up with more than $40,000. So this $40,000, 24 years later, is inadequate. And you all know the cost of building materials. You all know it. We need, Madam Speaker, if you're able to provide some more realistic contribution, then it may be to fewer people, but at least they would get to build. And if we try to say we're giving to 10, and none of them could build because it's not enough, and we give to 5, and the 5 build, the other 5 get next year. So, Madam Speaker, we have to be realistic because the figures, the cost of living is just way off the chart. Madam Speaker, I come to the government. This is what I consider and the government has as the big thing in the budget. It's a big thing in the budget, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Easton Taylor announced it. It's a big thing. It's the latest thing, Madam Speaker, tax reform. Madam Speaker, in this election year, the government, I expect the government, Madam Speaker, to do something. They have to do something. Whether you work or don't work, they have to do something. So, Madam Speaker, I realize that the government announced a movement of the tax-free threshold from 15,000 to 18,000. And the Premier gave an example which I would use. He stated that for a person earning 27 million, or 27,000, I should say, $660 per annum, that person will see a saving of $700 per year. Madam Speaker, I'm only using the Premier figures, $700 a year savings, and when I work that out, it works out to be about $58 savings per month. Some people say it's even less. Some people say less than 58, right? So Madam Speaker, I just want to highlight. I know some of you don't have any young children, you know, but some people do. And Madam Speaker, $58 can't buy a tin of needle. Right, Madam Speaker? $70 for the tin of needle. See? So $58 can't buy it. So, Madam Speaker, yes, the government tries something and you get credit for trying something. But it's my duty to state that $58 is really has minimal impact, Madam Speaker, minimal. Madam Speaker, I would not celebrate that, but I commend the idea, that I myself believe that the people here in Montserrat are too heavily taxed. Madam Speaker, it's not always the idea, it's how you execute the solution. Madam Speaker, I decided to do my own calculation. And I choose what I think might be middle ground in terms of the salary scale, $4,000 per month. And with this movement, a person earning $4,000 a month will get a saving of $75 per month. Madam Speaker, what I did, Madam Speaker, I realized that the government came up with a policy last year. The government came up with a policy last year. And the government decided that they're going to move all the government workers' salaries to above $2,000, so that no government worker will be working for $2,000 or less. And I commend them for that. But in my wisdom, in the absence of an official minimum wage, the government has created a baseline that can very well be considered a minimum wage. That is how I interpret it. So, Madam Speaker, $2,000 a month is $24,000 a year. So in my wisdom, I believe it is morally wrong to tax people who in the private sector who are $2,000 or less, to be taxing them because they fall in the minimum wage. You should not be taxing people in the minimum wage. And maybe you did not think about that, because there are still people in the private sector who make $2,000 or less. So when you carry it up to $18,000, you still have some people, so they make $2,000, that's $24,000. You're still taxing $6,000 out of the money. So you're taxing people who are in the minimum wage, working in the private sector. So we have to be fair to everybody. We have to be fair to the ones in the private sector as well. So if you're going to do it for one, do it for all. You have to do it for all. Madam Speaker. Yes, what I'm saying is that the government already fixed the part with the government workers. So the government workers, according to the government, I'm quoting the government, that nobody is working for, everybody is working above $2,000 a month. So I'm saying in the private sector, that is not the case. There's some people who work for $2,000 or less. So if the minimum wage is $2,000 a month, it is $24,000 a year. And if your tax-free threshold is $18,000, it's less than $24,000. So you're still taxing people who is in the minimum wage bracket. And that is morally wrong, and that needs to be corrected. Well, that's my position. If you all have a different position, that's your position. My position is that it's morally wrong, and you should start, instead of $18,000, you should move it to $24,000. That's my position. And if you all don't do it, I will do it. So you all better do it before me. Do it before me. Do it before me, Premier. Do it before me. Yeah, me know the tax sheet, but that is why I went to the extent of doing some more calculation. So I said, if I said, Premier, look, I did my own calculations now. I said, if you move it to $24,000, the same person who getting $27,660 a year they would have a saving of $111 instead of $58. The same person earning $4,000 a month, they would have a saving of $225 instead of $75. So I did my own calculation because I want to speak from my informed position, right? I would put my case, I say what I would do or what I think the government should do. The government could either take it or leave it. But it's my duty to represent all. And I think you can't be saying that you're going to do it for one set and don't do it for the next. You have to show that you're fair to everybody. And that's my position. And I don't take back position. Salary increase. Madam Speaker, I must commend and give credit to the Montserrat Civil Service Association, the executive, the members, the president that went up to the governor's office and they protest for what they think is the right. At least there's still people in Montserrat who are willing to come together and protest for what they believe is the right. And they went and they protest and they asked for salary increase. Madam Speaker, you know what happened? The people in the Montserrat Civil Service Association Union and the people in civil service, they're brilliant people. They're so brilliant that they decide to go and protest when they know election coming, so they know they're going to force the government hand to pay the increase. So the government gave 3% last year and 3% this year because the union forced their hand and the workers forced their hand. That was a good strategy. I commend the union and the workers on that one. Yeah, Madam Speaker, I commend. But Madam Speaker, we know with the cost of living and the high inflation, Madam Speaker, some people are already saying the 3% just going straight to paying the, the social security increase payments that you all legislate for the workers to pay. Well, some people say the 3% just go straight back to that. But Madam Speaker, while it was legislated that the workers have no choice and they have to pay this increased contribution, do you realize that the government has been delinquent in its payments? I'm not referring to the employer contribution side of things, but the same actuary made recommendation that a certain portion of money, in addition to that, should be paid by the government every year. And Madam Speaker, last year when it was paid, what was paid was not the amount that was recommended. This year, 1 million is announced in the budget, but the Premier did not say 1 million out of how much, if it's 1 million to 5 million. So I need to know, because when the government is delinquent in the payments and you already legislate for all of us to pay, we don't have no choice, we can't say we not pay it, but the government have choice, and they not pay it, they just do what they like, they pay sometime and they don't pay sometime and they pay enough. Remember the Honorable Buffon vote with us, and then he changed his mind again. We don't know why he changed his mind. He should just stay with us on the matter. So now the government has a duty, now to make sure that since you legislate that we must pay and we're paying, you must pay your portion. Not come with that. If you legislate that we have to pay, you have to pay your portion and the full portion. Because you don't say you're trying to save the thing. So you can't say you save the thing and then you shall change it. No. Stick to your words, man. Let your words mean something. Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I tell you something. When I heard the Premier mention pension reform, I got very, 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 very concerned. And you know why I get very concerned? Because, Madam Speaker, 14 years ago, MCAP did a pension reform of civil service pensions. And, Madam Speaker, that turned out to have put civil servants at a disadvantage. Madam Speaker, the Reuben Meade-led MCAP government, Madam Speaker, they legislate a pension amendment. And this pension amendment, Madam Speaker, from 2011, your service from 2011 to whenever you retire, the accrual rate is cut by 50%, cut in half. And they did not cut, no politician got the pension cut. And the civil servants got the pension cut in half. And now you say you are saved and you come back in politics to kill the civil servants finally. Or maybe you don't kill them, you can't go bury them now. Yes, Ruben. What you say you go again? You cut the civil servants' pension 50%, and you never cut yours. And when civil servants retire, they go understand what I say. They go realize they can't live after the money, and they have to go on social services. So you vote. Go vote then, if you're not going to sense. You better open your eyes and see. Let who eyes have to see who have ears to hear here. And no, I'm not a pastor. So I don't want to hear about no pension reform by no MCAP government. I have no confidence in none of them things. The last time I disadvantaged civil servants, and I come back now again. Because I broke, and your pension where you live pan not big enough, and you come back and the government forget money. But what about the pension then where you cut the civil servants? I don't remember that. And you kill the civil servant pension and now why you own not big enough and you come back around the government. Sure, Madam Speaker. Bonfire upon that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when people want to talk about reform, and governance, they have to come good, Come good when you talk about your governance and your this and your that, Because, Madam Speaker, people love to say this person is soft and that person is soft just because the person is loud mouth, like some of them. But, Madam Speaker, let me tell you something. The pack of which I chair, we stood up to the governor, the present governor, who said we can't do whatever. We took to the British Parliament our issue and have it dealt with up there, Madam Speaker. But they still say some more is soft. But, Madam Speaker, who is the softy? In 2010, is the Ruben Meade MCAP government that accept the Constitution that give the governor all the power just because he want to come the first premier. That's who soft. Can't stand up hard.
Point of order. Honourable Premier.
Point of order, Madam Speaker, that you cannot, parliamentarians cannot be calling people's name in Parliament, respect to who they are, and they're not able to defend themselves. They should.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, be mindful as you continue your presentation, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I swiftly continue. No harm done, just the truth and facts. But I understand the rules, and I'll stick to the rules. But let the truth be told. Let the truth be told. Madam Speaker, the private sector. There was mention, Madam Speaker, of the one-off small grant to businesses to purchase equipment and appliances. And I'm sure, Madam Speaker, that those who receive it make good use of it. I'm not going to ever say something not good if it's good. My concern, Madam Speaker, is that the problem, the extent of the problem being experienced by the private sector and the private sector businesses, Madam Speaker. The extent of the problem is not being addressed. So I don't know if it's a matter that the government don't have sufficient funds or what it is. But I have to state it as I see it. The extent of the problem is not being addressed, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I believe we need a comprehensive program to deal with the private sector. Because some people need technical help, some need financial help, and of course, as I said earlier, once we continue to have this small population issue, business is going to always struggle because we need numbers. We need numbers to have the turnovers. If you see me you see me today, you may not see me until next week. But you have numbers, if you don't see me, you see somebody else. So we cannot downplay the need for the increase in the population growth. We cannot downplay it, Madam Speaker. We cannot downplay it because it is critical. Until we solve this, we're not going to solve the private sector issues. So I really want to press the government, to find the strategies and apply the strategies so that we can increase the population with working people so that they can go out and support the businesses. So, Madam Speaker, I believe that sometimes we have our systems, and because the process is so onerous, and because you have to go through jump through so much hoops, we turn off potential investors or potential people who want to do business here, who, if they do business here, could create more employment. And this is one of the areas I believe that whether it's this present government or government after would have to seriously look at and fix. No investor wants to be going to 5, 6, 7 people or offices. They just want to know what's available, go online, see it, apply for it, and get on with it. They don't really want to, they don't want to see us. They just want to see what we're offering, and they want to go through the process online somewhere, and it's happened, and they know what they're getting. So, Madam Speaker, if you're going to talk about the private sector, we can't have the private sector without fixing these things. Yeah, we have to fix these things. So, we have to be realistic. Because, I mean, I love Montserrat, so I might say, okay, even though I have to go do that, I'll do that. But what about the people that don't have no ties with Montserrat, they just want to do business? They don't have no time with all that. So we have to fix these things. We have to fix these things. You know? Madam Speaker, capital projects. I'm going to wrap up in a bit. Capital projects. The Little Bay Port, Madam Speaker. There's been much talk about the Little Bay Port, and obviously it's doing its part in the economy, contributing to the economy. But it has issues. The implementation of it, there are issues. We know that the timeline, the completion date, that has expired. And we know there was an extension, no, the original completion date. So it's May. It should have been May. And the extension carried to where? The extension carried to December. Okay, well, I'm just being corrected. I was told that the original timeline for it to finish is May. So the original timeline for it to finish is next month. And the extension that was received by the government would take it to December. So, I mean, theoretically December. We don't have control over certain things, but theoretically December. So now, one thing I want the Premier to clarify for me, because let me just read this statement. The Premier said the Little Bay Port will be commissioned and handed over into operations, and we will see up to 100 employees by the end of the year. I'm not sure, is the 100 employees employed after or 100 employees working? Because that wasn't clear. But it seemed like the December you mentioned, or the end of the year you mentioned, and December the minister is saying it's going to finish. That too seems to be in line with each other. But the 100, you're saying that you're talking about, you should see 100 people working. Okay. Madam Speaker, my other concern with the construction or the process of the port, I know everybody don't agree with me, but I am still concerned about the length of the breakwater. And with the 30 meters breakwater, I personally don't believe it's going to be effective enough. I still believe it should have been the 130. I remember one time they were entertaining a second phase and were saying that it can be extended in a second phase, the breakwater that is, if necessary. But now when I spoke to a couple of people, it seemed like that second phase is off the cards and there is no second phase. I'm very concerned about that because the fact that they had a second phase, they are aware that there could be a problem, and if there's a problem, they would have done the second phase. But if the second phase is now off the table, then we do have an issue. We do have an issue. So, Madam Speaker, the other problem I have an issue with, I've been receiving some complaints, Madam Speaker. I see a trend developing with the contractors. First, it started with the rentals, where we had a situation where they were renting vehicles from the locals, and then they stopped renting vehicles from locals and they bring in their own vehicles or lease vehicles and importing vehicles. Now that trend have extended, Madam Speaker, into equipment. So they were renting crane trucks, flatbed and tractor trailers, telehandlers, backhoe, bobcat from the local service providers. Now they're complaining that the company has bring in their own telehandlers, crane truck, flatbed, tractor trailer, backhoe and bobcat, and now the local service providers are off the job. You can verify that for yourself. But that is a concern for me because my understanding was that the understanding of these service providers is that as long as the port is being constructed, that their services will be utilized, the local services will be utilized. Well, that seemed to have changed somewhere along the line, and it's something I need the minister or the premier or both of them to look into, because these persons would have invested in the equipment and in some cases, get the equipment up to scratch, anticipating, working, and getting a piece of the pie during the construction of the port. So this aspect of it needs to be resolved. Madam Speaker, the A1 road. Some time ago, Madam Speaker, there was funding agreed for the A1 road to continue. When I asked questions about it, I was told that there were more important issues that developed and that the funding was taken from there and put in another project. Madam Speaker, you see the roads yourself, you drive on them. And I've been looking at the budget estimates, which is suggesting that some 819,300 in this budget year and 600,000 in the following year. But Madam Speaker, I know from what we had budgeted before, it was a lot much more than this, and I also know that the materials have increased, cost of materials. So I think I'm within my right to say this doesn't look like sufficient to do the rehabilitation of the A1 road. So, Madam Speaker, I also heard the minister saying that they're waiting for a planer, and that may not be available before next year. So the rehabilitation of the A1 road may not be done before next year. So the most that we might see now is patching, which is temporary. But Madam Speaker, I'm very concerned that even if the road is going to be done next year, I'm concerned about the amount I see budgeted in the budget estimates over this year and next year, because they clearly are much less than what we had budgeted 5 years ago. And since that, the cost of materials has gone up. So there's no way that this will be sufficient to do the A1 road. So I would need to get some explanation on that. Madam Speaker, I realize that the government has decided to put some attention once again on the Little Bay town development. In principle, that is good, Madam Speaker, because I think that we have a sustainable development plan, the physical development plan, and we have all agreed after all extensive consultation what should be in Little Bay. Well, of course, generally, we could always have tweaks and changes and so forth. So I'm pleased to see that some money is being put into the works at Little Bay. What I'm wondering if the 2 million is like for road works and putting in utilities underground, because what I would not want to see is that any government make the mistakes of putting the lines overhead, because it's for several reasons. When you have storms and you have the wires going down, no electricity, you may say, okay, the people have generators, they turn the generators on. That is true. But when you have the same fiber that was traveling, installed on the same pole, and that is down, there is no fiber connection, so you have no continuity in terms of continuing work. And if we are serious about bringing companies here that are doing services for customers that are overseas, they don't want to hear the excuse that, oh, storm passed through and we out. No, they don't want to hear that. You have to make your infrastructure resilient as possible so that it is almost storm-proof, hurricane-proof, etc. So I do hope that this $2 million is really put aside for making sure you have the utilities underground and that you have proper road network. I also hope that the consultation on the road network is sufficient so that we get the roads in the right place. So we don't put them in place and then we have to go and dig them up again because we're putting something else there. So, Madam Speaker, I too believe, yes, that it's time to revisit and to add to the development of the Little Bay town. Madam Speaker, on the energy, I see 142,000 for geothermal maintenance of the wells. And of course, yes, you have to keep the wells maintained. Nothing wrong with that. But Madam Speaker, I was disappointed when I did not hear anything about the funding of a geothermal plant. Madam Speaker, during my time, I had the various processes that we were asked to carry out. We did it. And Madam Speaker, after doing it, it was defeated at the time. They still did not come up with their portion of the funds that they should come up with. Because I am mindful that although we had about 5 companies and they all came back, well, about 3 of them came back with figures. And they really were saying that if they were to fund it totally, they gave the figures they would want to, the rates they would want to charge or sell at, and they would want to make the returns basically in 20 years. And Madam Speaker, that would have put us right back where we are now in terms of the cost of electricity. And I said, no, that can't work because if you promise the people that geothermal is going to reduce the cost of electricity, we cannot now go and tell them we're going to still charge them the same money when there's no fuel surcharge to pay and you're still paying the same amount. So we did not go for that and defeat at the time, well, maybe it's the British government because they know the FCDO. They did not come up with their half because they're saying you need to at least come up with half the fund and then the private sector come with the half and then they will be able to charge half of what they had there. And then we will be in a good position. So, Madam Speaker, I know they basically asked this government to go and do the same thing again. So it's like it's a merry-go-round. So I was hoping that at least if we didn't get it, this government would get it. But, Madam Speaker, we've seen that we end up at the same position because this is the final year. It's the final year, final budget, election year. And we still have no commitment, no proof funding from the British to go towards the geothermal generating plant. So all they give us there is some money to clean the wells, and when we want to feel excited, we let go the steam and see the steam in the air. That is not going to do us any good, Madam Speaker. It's about time that you talk about consultation for a better relationship. It's time you put some money into the geothermal generating plant, and if you don't want to give the full amount, put a portion, put 50%, put 60%, and then let's find the other 40 in the private sector. But it's about time that we stop the talking and actually get something done where the geothermal is concerned. Madam Speaker, I just want to say on the sports, I want to thank the government for whatever assistance they've given to the sportsmen and women. But I also want to say, Madam Speaker, that I still think we need to fix the policy in terms of people getting time off when they have to go and represent Montserrat or represent, well, they still represent Montserrat. If it's not even at the national level in terms of representing the Montserrat team, if they're playing a club for club or franchise, they're still representing Montserrat. Because once they go out there and they're doing well, Montserrat name will be called, Montserrat will be getting the exposure that we can't pay for. So we need to really stop the talking and we need to really fix the sports policy so that it's in the best interest of the athletes. And while the government state that in this election year, they're trying a thing with the racetrack and some other areas, I want them to, the racetrack, the car racetrack, I want them to also remember the racetrack for the athletes. The racetrack for the athletes. Because these athletes been doing well without proper facility. I believe they have proper facility to practice on, they'll do even better. So let's not get excited about one area and forget the others. Let's remember all the areas. We still have the cricket. The cricket right now, if you go down there, the pitch is not ready, so you can't play no cricket on it. So, in the park. So we have to, well, the Cricket Association, I think they're limping on one leg because I don't think they have the funding. I think they're limping on one leg. So they need help, and the basketball need help. Well, the football is not taken care of, but the basketball, the athletic association, the cricket, the netball, you know, these people need help. I mean, well, you always talk about the motorsports, they too need help. So all the sports need help. So let's not ignore any of them. So, Madam Speaker, I believe that while the government would have done what they have to do, I still think that, as I pointed out, some of the issues, some of the areas fall short, and I still believe that at the end of the day, in some of these areas, the government have been found wanting and been out of touch with the needs of the people. I say they have addressed some areas, but in other areas, they are found wanting, and I find them out of touch with the needs of the people in some areas. So, Madam Speaker, I want to use the opportunity to bid the Honorable Charles Colonel a happy retirement, as he stated that this is his last budget. And I know the Premier says his last budget as a Premier, but I don't know if he's going to run again. But if he's retiring, I'll bid him a happy retirement. If not, or you're not retiring, or you're just changing position. Okay, he said he's just changing position. He just, you know, but nobody. Okay, right. And when you retire, you know, come back. You come back again as a savior. Oh, you know, come back as a savior. Right. So, Madam Speaker, on this note, I would like to just thank you for the opportunity to have my say.
You ready to rebut? I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, now 11:40. I would need like a time, not a whole night or a whole day to rebut. May I suggest that we have to go into committee now? Yes. Is the committee for rebut first? Rebut first, and then committee afterwards. Let's have a break, have lunch, come back, then do our rebuttal, my rebuttal, and then go to committee stage. And we may be able to do a few bills this evening. We close at 5 this evening, so we may have to do a few bills. Yes, 5, thereabout, 5-ish, thereabout. We have a few bills. So can we come back? We sell lunch at 12:30. So can we come back at 3? We have lunch. You can go and come back if you want to. No, lunch is 12:30. Huh? What's? Madam Speaker, forgive me. Madam Speaker, the consensus seems to be that we adjourn until 3 o'clock. That's enough. Thank you.
I recognize the Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion for the adjournment of this Honourable House until 3 o'clock.
It has been moved and seconded that this Honourable House stands adjourned until 3. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. And the ayes have it. We stand adjourned until 3.